gonna heal. Gonna heal. Beme.
Welcome to Liberia Talks International, a Liberian diaspora radio talk show based in Philadelphia. My name is William Dolly. With me today is Honorable Ali Sylla, a Unity Party Senatorial candidate based in Monrovia. He's in the U.S. to visit family and also to advocate for Ebola awareness, and he was kind enough to visit our studio. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
So, what is your assessment about the situation in Liberia currently?
Well, the situation in Liberia, as I speak to you, is getting better. I think the number of cases have dropped tremendously. But if you retrospect a little bit, but before it got better, it was a little bit worse. In June, July, and August, it was the dark days of our country history. Okay. Realistically, because many people died, people were going to the hospital being rejected because there were no bedding, and most of our health workers also died from this particular killer virus called Ebola. So obviously, July was a very bad time. In August, we did not have a grip on what was happening in Liberia, especially in terms of cultivating and eradicating Ebola. The president of Liberia, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, called for a state of emergency, which covered Article 86 of our Constitution. And then that state of emergency, there was a lot of restrictions on movement of our people, freedom of movement, freedom of speech, restriction on religious practices, non-essential workers were laid out, and many more. So based on that, many communities were quarantined, like in West Point and Dolotown. They were quarantined for a number of days because those places, Ebola really hit those places. With the situation of West Point, I was only quarantined because the people from West Point looted the holding center, the observational center in West Point. So I think Madam President, based on the observational and precautionary measure, decided to call for quarantine of West Point. So obviously those are some of the...
Honorable Sylla, there has been a lot of criticism about the government earlier response to the whole Ebola crisis. For the benefit of the diaspora Liberian, what would have been done differently?
Well, I think the criticism, some of the criticism are fair enough. I mean, when the citizens of a country are dying, where the government that is democratically elected cannot provide the necessary and the robust interventions to make sure that the situation is contained, then the government will come under some scrutiny. So I think for me, some of these criticisms are fair, but I think the government did not have the capacity to deal with this kind of killer virus. We didn't have virologics. Most of our healthcare workers did not experience such an epidemic in our society, where people get it from contact. And our community, as Liberian, we have a very close-knit community where we interact with each other in a very delicate way. So the government did not have answer to many of the challenges that Ebola was causing our people.
So as far as to handle this kind of situation in the future, from what we know now?
Well, no, that's a very good question. I think, with the international support, looking at all of the people who go into Liberia from Uganda, from Cuba, from the United States of America, and other partners, international partners as well, go into Liberia to help us in terms of curtailing and also containing this particular virus. I think we are more prepared than ever before. Many ETUs have been built. From Bomi County, Tottenham to Lofa County, Mosurada, places like Allen Clinics, places like the new defense ministries. EADB and other communities have ETU centers. Some of the ETUs have bedding capacity of 300, 150. So obviously I think we are more prepared now than ever before. In August, over 983 beds in the 3 countries were available. And at that time, the cases of Ebola was over 2,000 cases. So that's why you saw lots of our people going to the hospital. and who have been rejected. By July, most of our hospital and our health clinics closed down and shut down. So our people were not getting access to non-Ebola interventions. So they were not getting any treatment for those things. So obviously in July was a very terrible time for us as Liberians and as, for the world, because Ebola became an international crisis drastically. People leaving from Liberia to Nigeria and carrying Ebola there. Some of the doctors who contracted the virus from Liberia in other countries like in Guinea were able to transport the virus to the United States of America here, as well as in Germany, in Spain. So it was a in Mali, in some African country, in Mali, in Senegal. So it was a very, very devastating time for us as Liberians, as a country as a whole.
Can we actually give an estimate about the impact of the Ebola crisis in Liberia?
Well, you cannot really put your hand on the catastrophic impact, but what you can do is you can put a projections on it, because to be frank with you, Ebola really crippled our economy.
Thank you on that. Let's just switch a little bit and talk about the issue of corruption in government in Liberia. There have been a lot of criticism, and sometimes people get to wonder whether these criticisms have any value about rampant corruption in Liberia. So what can you say about that?
Well, the issue of with corruption in Liberia is that it's been in our society for so many years. I think, with the boom era of accountability and transparency with international partners like Global Watch, Amnesty International, and other international partners. I think if you look at the social media and the revolutions of this particular technological world, have been able to showcase some of the pitfalls and challenges in terms of corruption in Liberia or in the world. So obviously Liberia have similar challenges in many other countries in Africa as well. But I think what we need to do as a country is to be able to prosecute some of these officials who are involved in embezzlement.
I understand you are the senatorial candidate for the Unity Party, and the president's son is also running for the same position. Do you have the support of the president?
We have exclusive support of the president because we are two political ideologues who come from the establishment of the Unity Party, and the president is of an obligation to give the party candidate exclusive support.
George Weah, let's think about the George Weah factor. He has a huge support among the youth. Can you beat George Weah?
I think if you look at the numbers, I think afraid is a poor choice of word. I think part of the numbers in elections and politics is about the number. If you look at the numbers of 2011 elections, where the CDC had 207,346 votes, and the Unity Party had 201,710 votes, the disparity there, the discrepancy there was like 6,000 votes. I think with the Unity Party support and coming from our own demographic background, I think this is a sure win. And I can guarantee you that it's a sure win.
Do you think that you are the best of all of these candidates?
I think, over the years, the work that we have done, we've worked with the masses of our people in the 17 districts. We've been able to train and guest lecture at more than 200 intellectual centers in most around the country. We've been able to provide basic services and strategically position ourselves in terms of representing the youthful populations in our country.
Let's go back to the economic policy of the president. There have been a lot of criticism. I mean, the impact of how economic policy has been a total failure. Unemployment, 95%, massive youth unemployment, no job, no basic infrastructure, no water, sanitation is poor. Some have even classified Amara, which is with the finance minister, as practicing a textbook economic policy, borrowing idea from the World Bank, and I have no reality to what is happening in Liberia. So basically, people are saying that this is a dysfunctional economic policy. What can you say? What is happening? What is not working?
Well, the first term when the president took power, we had like $80 million. And now the economy of our country and the budget of our country is close to $600 million. So obviously there are trajectories of development there. I mean, you shouldn't dismiss that.
You look at the achievement of this government. Some people will say some of the priorities were misplaced. Like, for instance, you can't build any infrastructure without light. I mean, it's common sense.
View that you cannot start anything without electricity and water. But what I don't agree with you on is that the gains that have been made. You remember now, we fought a civil war that broke down the social fabric of our country, killed more than 300,000 of our citizens, break all of our infrastructures down, even including the dam. And today, after 9 years, and today we are talking about 2% of Montserrat County is being electrified. Realistically, it's not big enough, but there are strides and gains being made. You cannot say from Portland all the way to Dupont Road, all of those things, GS Road in the backside, they are all done. Those roads were not there prior to the Civil War. So there are many things that have been happening in Liberia. We cannot dismiss the gains that have been made, and we cannot discredit this government from some of these gains that have been made.
I've been a lot of setback because power has been focused or centered around Monrovia, and people in the interior are not involved about own decision making. And recently there was an issue in Lofa County where there was a concession agreement signed without the consultation of people in some part of Lofa. And when the president went there was some massive disagreement and demonstration on the street. And the president just walked away. How can the president walk away from people that have genuine grievances about their farmland being given to big company without their consultation?
So we are calling on the executive branch of government to revisit that particular agreement between the government of Liberia and LACC in Lofa County and Kwadi, so we can make sure that the local people understand the intricacy and the complexities of that arrangement.
Last but not least, there are report of massive distrust of this government, especially in the wake of this Ebola crisis. Can this ailing government recover?
Well, the recovery process is to make sure that we eradicate Ebola out of Liberia. The government is to bring people together and reconcile them through their greed and grievances. And I think the president should be able to do that. We as Liberians ourselves, we should get ourselves involved in the process of reconciling our people based on this disassociation we have among ourselves, bring back our Liberian culture, hugging, shaking hands, some of those norms, those burying our people, some of those norms that we as Liberians are used to, are acculturated with, must be able to get ourselves involved and support the president.
Thank you, Bro Ali, for coming to our studio. Hope to see you next time.
Thank you.
My name is Senatorial. Thank you for watching Liberia Talks International, and hope to see you soon.
Beme. Zayo. Deka buka como a ver, así en